Hello, my amazing tribe. I'm excited to connect with you through this video. Hello, fellow enthusiasts. Today, we're diving deep into the fascinating world of 2024 Melbourne Synagogue attack. On 6 December 2024, at approximately 4:10 a.m. local time, an arson terrorist attack took place at the Adass Israel Synagogue of Melbourne in Ripponlea, a suburb of Melbourne, Australia. The resulting fire injured one member of the synagogue and caused significant damage to the building. Investigation of the attack was assigned to the Australian Federal Police's counter-terrorism unit. On 9 December 2024, Victoria Police stated the incident was being treated as a terrorist attack. The perpetrators of the attack reportedly used an accelerant and followed by spreading that throughout the interior of the building with a broom before lighting the accelerant fluid. And police commenced searching for the perpetrators of the attack. In the upcoming section, we'll be dissecting background and exploring its implications in greater detail. Following the Hamas attack on Israel on 7 October 2023, anti-Semitic actions directed at synagogues occurred across Australia. In an incident occurring on 8 October 2023, in New South Wales, 2 individuals walked past a synagogue and shouted Allahu Akbar before saying that they would blow up the synagogue. On 11 October 2023, in Melbourne, a synagogue received a bomb threat. On 23 November 2023, in Western Australia, an individual threw 2 glasses of red paint at a synagogue. In December 2023, hoax bomb threats were made to several synagogues across Australia. On 25 November 2024, pro-Palestinian protesters targeted a Melbourne synagogue where a panel discussion was organised by the Australian Israel and Jewish Affairs Council AIJSE. An altercation between protesters and counter-protesters led to the police restraining man wearing a kefi. On 26 November 2024, a Chabad synagogue in Street Kilda, Melbourne was vandalised with pro-Palestinian and anti-Semitic graffiti. The targeted synagogue in the December 2024 attack was the Orthodox Adass Israel Synagogue of Melbourne, located in Ripponlea, Victoria. It was built in 1965, designed by Ernest Fuchs, and opened on 19 September 1965. It is part of the Adass Israel congregation, a Jewish group in Melbourne that traces its origins to a split in the Elwood Talmud Torah Hebrew congregation in. Some of its early members were boys and men who had been sent to Australia by the British on the infamous Dunera in 1941. The synagogue was previously vandalised in 1989, and it was severely damaged in an arson attack on 1 January 1995. According to Philip Zayek, president of the Jewish Community Council of Victoria, the Adass Israel congregation is apolitical with regards to the state of Israel. The terrorist attack took place in a period where the Australian government's national terrorism threat level was at probable after being raised in August 2024, indicating that there is a greater than 50% chance of a terrorist attack or attack planning taking place in Australia's near future. The threat level had previously been at probable level since shortly after November's Paris terror attacks until 2022 when it was lowered to possible. As we enter this new phase, let's uncover the impact of attack on our broader topic. In the early hours of 6 December 2024, 2 masked men entered the Adass Israel Synagogue of Melbourne in Ripponlea. The men began pouring an accelerant on the floor and spreading it throughout the interior of the building with a broom when they were disturbed by a congregant who was attending the synagogue. The 2 perpetrators set the accelerant alight just before 4:10 a.m. and fled the scene. The fire spread quickly, causing extensive damage to the inside of the synagogue and collapsing part of the roof. One member of the synagogue sustained minor injuries to his hands in the fire. Dozens of emergency service crews, including 65 firefighters, were called to synagogue shortly after the blaze first started. Firefighters spent more than an hour containing the blaze. A crime scene was established after the fire had been put out and members of the synagogue were allowed to enter in the afternoon of 6 December 2024 to retrieve the Torah scrolls, holy books, talits, tefillin, other artifacts and some personal items. Brace yourself for an in-depth analysis as we navigate through aftermath and its far-reaching implications. On 9 December, in the wake of the synagogue attack, the AFP established Task Force Amallet to investigate anti-Semitism in Australia. The Australian Security Intelligence Organisation ASIO also announced it would be assisting the task force in its investigation. Following the incident, police in Canberra increased patrols around synagogues in the nation's capital. The Sydney Jewish community organised a demonstration on 15 December 2024 at Martin Place, protesting the Australian government's inadequate response to anti-Semitism. On 17 December 2024, Victorian Premier Jacinta Allan announced new measures impacting public protests as part of an effort to prevent anti-Semitic behaviour. The proposed laws would establish safe access in close proximity to places of worship and prohibit disturbances of religious gatherings. In this part of the video, we'll be delving deeper into misinformation and conspiracy theories and analysing its key components. Following the attack, Antown Issa, a former Guardian Australia journalist and Chief of Staff to Greens Senator Mehreen Farouche, made conspiratorial claims that the attack may have been a false flag perpetrated by Zionists. Issa was reportedly reprimanded for his comments and was counselled over the statement. It's important to note, however, that there are ongoing investigations on some of the reported anti-Semitic attacks, with Anthony Albanese commenting on the matter, suggesting there are actors without ideological commitment being funded. A similar conspiratorial statement blaming a Jewish conspiracy for the attack was made by Wissam Haddad, also known as Abu al-Said, an Islamic preacher in Sydney who previously came under public scrutiny for anti-Semitic remarks. The preacher's statement was criticised by the New South Wales Premier, Chris Minns. Get ready for an enlightening exploration as we dig into continued targeting of Australian synagogues and understand its role in the broader context. The targeting of Australian synagogues continued after the Melbourne incident with the Southern Sydney Synagogue in Aloha vandalised on 10 January 2025. The Southern Sydney Synagogue was previously firebombed in 1991. And on 11 January 2025, the Newtown Synagogue in Sydney's inner west was vandalised, with the arsonists also attempting to set the synagogue on fire. Now, we shift our focus to Australian federal government, a topic that deserves our attention. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said on a radio interview on 6 December that he was outraged at the attack. He revealed that he had been briefed that same day by the Australian Federal Police AFP Commissioner, and that the attack was deliberate, and CCTV footage had shown the two assailants spread an accelerant throughout the building with a broom before setting it alight. Albanese also spoke to the government's Special Envoy for Anti-Semitism, Gillian Segal, on 6 December. On 8 December, Albanese stated the incident was quite clearly an act of terrorism, and announced $32.50 million in federal funding for security upgrades to Jewish schools and community centres. Other governmental bodies to condemn the incident included the Australian Human Rights Commission, which stated, "Anti-Semitism is abhorrent. It is a form of racism which has no place in Australia." This attack is the latest incident in a trend of significant rises in anti-Semitism. In response to the government's condemnation of the attack and the establishment of the dedicated police task force, Gillian Segal, Australia's Special Envoy on Anti-Semitism, pointed to the lack in serious penalties applied to individuals arrested in related events, such as those flying prohibited flags, and that it has set a tone of permissiveness in Australian society. Get ready for a captivating exploration as we unravel the layers of Victorian government and their profound significance. Premier of Victoria Jacinta Allan condemned the attack as an evil anti-Semitic attack. On 6 December, at a press conference in front of the synagogue, Allan pledged $100,000 from the state government to fund the rebuilding of the synagogue. While at the site, the Premier was heckled by local Jewish residents. Allan returned unannounced to the site several days later, where she was shown the portion of the site destroyed by the firebombing. Similarly, The incident was condemned by local elected officials. With that being said, let's now move on to Liberal Party of Australia. Federal leader of the opposition, Peter Dutton, said the attack was abhorrent, and that it was to be expected due to what he sees as a lack of compassion for the Jewish people from the Albanese government. Dutton also stated that the funding announced by the federal government on 8 December should be allowed to be used to fund armed guards for Jewish schools and community centres. In the next phase, we'll be immersing ourselves in the realm of Australian Jewish community groups and exploring its real-world applications. The Executive Council of Australian Jewry called for the Australian government to address the incident with action and not merely words, stating, "We ask you, Prime Minister, to reflect on how this has been allowed to occur. We ask you to reflect on how the conditions in which a synagogue can be set alight have been allowed to develop." Your words swiftly condemning the attack were heard by our community. However, the time for mere words has long passed. We now call for action. The Jewish Community Council of Victoria condemned the attack. JCCV CEO Naomi Levin stated, "We were absolutely shocked, but not surprised, to hear that a synagogue here in Melbourne had been attacked overnight. The Jewish community has been warning about an unacceptable rise in anti-Semitism for more than a year. We hoped it would never come to this, but today, our fears have been realized." The Jewish Council of Australia issued a statement condemning the attack, stating, "This reprehensible act of violence is an attack not only on the synagogue but on Jewish communities more broadly." The Jewish Council also condemned efforts by a senior staffer from the Australian Greens to label the attack as a false flag, as the claim would only deepen anti-Semitic sentiment. The Australian Jewish Association released a statement in which they felt outraged but not surprised due to their view that Australian Jews had been abandoned by the Albanese government. Let's now zoom in on religious leaders and uncover the hidden gems that lie within. The attack was condemned by the Victorian Multicultural Commission's Multi-Faith Advisory Group, stating, "Places of worship hold profound meaning for people of faith. The right to feel safe and free to worship in these sacred spaces is fundamental and must be respected and protected. We stand together to promote understanding, respect and harmony among all faith communities and people of goodwill. We assure them of our loving prayers and meditation." Separately, the Catholic Archdiocese of Melbourne condemned the attack, stating that a peaceful place of worship has been violated and nothing can justify such violence. Anti-Semitism has no place in our society. We stand in prayerful solidarity with members of the Jewish community at this time. And the Australian Federation of Islamic Councils AFIC condemned the attack, stating, "Such acts of hatred and violence must be met with a swift and firm response from law enforcement. We urge the authorities to thoroughly investigate this matter and ensure that those responsible are held accountable." Nationally, the attack was condemned by the National Council of Churches in Australia NCCA, stating, "It is for all of us to step up as peacemakers and commit to upholding the safety and harmony of our multicultural and multi-faith society in Australia." And the event was described in a statement by Anglican Archbishop of Sydney, who condemned an anti-Semitic attack in Sydney, stating, "The latest attack on the Jewish community in Sydney is egregious, cowardly and despicable. All people of goodwill, faith or none, will condemn this outrage." It follows the terrorist attack on the Adass Israel Synagogue in Melbourne, and more than a year of increasing hostility and intimidation of the Australian Jewish community in multiple, grotesque ways. Now, let's delve into the intricacies of others and explore its various aspects. On 7 December, former Liberal MP Josh Frydenberg and former Labour Senator Nova Perez called at a press conference for the federal government to declare the event a terrorist attack. Frydenberg said that Jewish Australians were now talking openly about leaving the country and that young Jews are forced to conceal their faith and ethnicity for fear of attack. Perez called the attack totally deplorable. Other civic and religious groups to condemn the attack included a group of 18 Turkish Australian religious and secular organisations from New South Wales and the Human Rights Law Centre. In the next phase, we'll be immersing ourselves in the realm of Israel and exploring its real-world applications. Prime Minister of Israel Benjamin Netanyahu criticized the Albanese government following the incident, linking the event to Australia's position on the Middle East. President Isaac Herzog said that he has spoken with Albanese about the attack and had told Albanese that the recent anti-Semitic attacks required strong and firm action. Brace yourself for an enlightening exploration of United States of America as we dive into its profound implications. On 10 December 2024, the Simon Wiesenthal Centre issued a travel warning for Jews visiting Australia, advising them to exercise extreme caution and that they were not convinced that Jews are safe. The time has come to unravel the secrets behind United Kingdom and gain a deeper understanding. 6 members of the UK Parliament sponsored a motion for the Parliament to condemn the arson attack on the Adass Israel Synagogue and to acknowledge that trends of anti-Semitism have also unfolded in the UK. The motion calls on the UK government to address anti-Semitism both at home and abroad and to provide funding to secure synagogues and Jewish schools. I hope you learned something new today. Let me know what you found most interesting in the comments below.